Alright, part 19 then, don't all ask at once. I think I'll begin with this. I posted in October about an exercise held in the UK in 2025. It's an exercise a lot like this very infamous one from October 2019, a simulation, and 6 or so years later in 2025, Exercise Pegasus was held in the UK, the biggest of its kind by all accounts, running from September through November 2025. And with this parliamentary announcement about the exercise, it suggests that it's being held to test the UK's capabilities in the event of another major pandemic. And when all's said and done, I would be very worried about this if I was in the UK Parliament, because as we have seen before, whenever a drill or exercise for a major event is held like this one, the exact same thing seems to happen not long after, in real life. This exercise in June 2001, which featured this guy on the front cover, surrounded by planes, and inside, a strangely similar scene of a very sunny day with an aircraft on its way to a big city. Coincidence. And that panorama show, London Under Attack, from May 2004, another exercise with mock broadcasts of an attack in London, featuring 3 incidents on the underground system and 1 on the roads above. Exactly what happened the very next year. Coincidence. And that event featuring a brand new illness from October 2019, which supposedly started in animals and then spread to humans, all leading to the big pandemic of 2020. And one would have to ask, don't the authorities know by now? Whenever they hold these exercises, God of Coincidences picks up his magic wand of coincidence and casts a tricky little spell to make the very same thing happen in the real world not long after. Will they ever learn? And will the God of Coincidences work its wizardy ways once again with Exercise Pegasus, just like Event 201 and its eventual real-world echo in China? Well, the inclusion of the mythical winged horse in the title of the exercise could indeed be ominous for next year. 2026 is the Chinese Year of the Horse. And back in 2019, when this was held, it was the Year of the Pig, the same animal that the so-called pandemic was said to originate from in that famous exercise. And mythologically, Pegasus is said to have been born from the red stuff of Medusa, the snake-haired Gorgon of Greek mythology. And with this exercise being held in the Year of the Snake, will Pegasus get its real-world wings in 2026? If the gematria is anything to go by, then maybe. Now, I was a little spoilt for choice here because the word exercise and the word Pegasus both give us an 88, as does this phrase. But this number is reserved for the one and only DT, as we have seen many times on this channel. But weirdly, there is a Pegasus connection here, given these headlines from this year. Pegasus is considered a piece of spyware in the US, and it can, it is reported, secretly install itself into smartphones. The company behind this Pegasus spyware, Israeli firm NSO, recently announced new leadership in a bid to restore its image. The new leader is a former Hollywood exec and a former DT lawyer, David Friedman, a one-time ambassador to that certain state during DT's first term. Now, I don't know if there is a connection here between this Pegasus and this Pegasus, but the same day that this exercise began, September 18th, 2025, was the exact same day that DT and the UKPM signed none other than a tech deal together on the last day of DT's UK visit. This coincided with a variation of the astrological kite configuration, with Mercury, another winged mythological figure, at the autumnal equinox degree. Now, Mercury here at the apex of what I've called the inverted kite configuration, or the scales, during this signing, is made all the more pertinent when we consider DT and Starmer both have Mercury resonance. DT is tropical Gemini and Starmer Virgo. both signs ruled by Mercury, which, if nothing else, is quite amazing astrology. But was there some significance that this deal was signed on the same day Exercise Pegasus began? Is there a connection under the surface? One thing seems certain. Digital surveillanceware, spyware, is certainly something I would expect in the next pandemic, whether fake or not, all leading to the cashless control grid or global China. In this parliamentary announcement from earlier in 2025, we get a curious hidden in plain view nudge to use it here, with the phrase, Exercise Pegasus is a prime opportunity. Well, let's get the prime cipher out, and with Pegasus being born from Medusa mythologically, we get a very nice bit of resonance here with Medusa and the original mother of all pandemic exercises. Is Exercise Pegasus born of Event 201? And the mythical winged horse has a particular presence in the capital city of the UK, where Exercise Pegasus originates from, being a significant symbol around the Temple area of London. Temple is named after the Temple Church, built by the Knights Templar no less. And this church, built by the Knights Templar, was modelled on our old friend Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. Wait, pandemic exercise, Jerusalem? Oh no, wait, no, not that dance again, please, anything but that. Make it stop, I beg you. Fuck getting sick, just fucking shoot me. I'll take it, please, just stop.
We are counting that as a COVID-19 death.
Speaking of temples, we had DT announcing his ballroom plans in 2025. Now, some people online have compared these plans to Solomon's Temple. I wouldn't say it's an exact match, but there is a resemblance to blueprints that you can find online for the building as described in Ezekiel. This little circular detail is similar. Seems pretty nailed on for it to be built where it's supposed to be though, sometime soon. We have seen that foreshadowed for many years directly involving this guy. And there is a clip of DT talking about the new ballroom when he said this.
This was the ballroom, and this room holds 88 people, and the new one will hold 999 people, which is a difference.
Let's just play that again.
And this room holds 88 people, and the new one will hold 999 people, which is a difference.
It is strange that DT would point toward these two numbers here. It's almost as though he asks us to work out the difference. And as we know, the difference between these numbers gives us a very familiar one. And this number correlates to a particular biblical passage which definitely fits the bill. But again, a certain building stands in the way, and barring a natural disaster or a final divinely decisive striking down from the great Creator, or some kind of explosive battle in the area, this building still poses a bit of a problem. Will the great Creator intervene and step in to rectify the situation, I wonder? Maybe an earthquake. And given all of this headline significance, one cannot help but think that this idea has been around for quite some time. There's this article from November 1985, with DT front and centre, holding a dove, and the subheadline, The Ultimate Deal. And 40 years later, he was given a golden dove by the PM of a certain state for his role in what is being referred to as his peace deal in the Middle East. This deal was preceded by the temple coin, also with a dove on it, next to an image of the third temple. The coin also sees DT's profile alongside that of Cyrus the Great, a famous biblical character, known for his support in rebuilding the Second Temple in Jerusalem, something DT has been earmarked to do, as we have seen many times on this channel. And we have also seen DT compared to Cyrus the Great in a certain state, with enormous billboards depicting this all over the place. Is DT really Cyrus the Great? Well, if Isaiah 44 verse 28 is anything to go by, DT has fulfilled this part, with the recognition of Jerusalem as capital city. Will he lay the foundations of the temple? The temple and the dove featured on the reverse side of this coin. And I made a post back in the first week of November showing how this dove being held by DT in this article resonates so very well with the dove featured in Genesis chapter 8 verse 8. And less than a month later, DT signed an executive order to launch his Genesis mission. We saw DT travel to the Knesset in that certain state on the 13th of October 2025 to mark the completion of the first phase of the so-called ceasefire, where he signed this, a message of 13 words, into a book on the 13th at 11:11 a.m. And later that day, he would deliver a speech in Jerusalem in which he would say this:
We gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
But the question remains, will DT, as foretold, build the third temple of Solomon? Is he the perfect candidate to fulfill this prophecy, having been compared to Cyrus the Great, who played such a huge role in building the second temple, and pictured with a symbolic dove, a Kabbalistic symbol of Shekinah, who it is hoped will return and dwell within the temple with the great Creator when it is built. But will it be built? Well, let's ask the White House, shall we?
Has, to your knowledge, has the subject of rebuilding the Holy Temple in Jerusalem come up?
It has not. No, it has not. I don't. I'm sorry, Jake.
Do you believe it hasn't been talked about whatsoever? With what we have seen over the last few years, seems pretty doubtful all this was for nothing. And this headline becomes concerning when viewed with this clip.
We want to know what you're reading now.
What I'm reading?
Yeah.
It's a book by a historian by the name of Barry Strauss. It's called The Jews Against Rome. The Jews Against Rome.
What made you pick it up?
Well, we lost that one. I think we have to win the next one.
So if the book he's reading is called
The Jews Against Rome.
let's hope he doesn't mean.
The Jews against the new Rome, the United States.
What does he mean when he says,
Well, we lost that one. I think we have to win the next one.
what future conflict between these groups does he mean? If DT is really the reincarnation of the biblical Esau, Esau being the head of the kingdom of Edom, Edom being seen as Rome, the new Rome being seen as the USA, as Benny Boy suggests here, what has DT done that could warrant a potential conflict, given DT's service to that state over the years? Well, to give a little more context here, this clip is taken from this press conference in March 2019, when he said this.
I said to the secretary that the last time Pompeo visited Jerusalem didn't end that well. But this is a different time. Rome and Jerusalem clashed over values with a great tragedy for the Jewish people. But the new Rome, the United States, views itself as a new Jerusalem. There is no greater friendship than the one between Israel and the United States.
Now, on the face of it, old Benny Boy seems to be underlining an alliance here, a camaraderie between the two nations. But let's not forget that this idea of Rome seeing itself as the New Jerusalem is not viewed with particular fondness within a certain religious group. We are told that Rome took on the mantle of the New Jerusalem after they supposedly destroyed the Second Temple there, which is seen in rabbinic tradition as an inversion, with the aggressor masquerading as a divine heir. So when Benny Boy says this,
but the new Rome, the United States, views itself as a new Jerusalem.
It could be seen to confirm, within a religious context, that Jerusalem itself is indeed divine, with Edom seen as impostor, usurper, and counterfeit. And this in turn is seen to confirm and fulfill biblical prophecy, and the future for the New Rome, or the Kingdom of Edom, in those prophecies is not very bright, to say the least. So when Benny Boy says this, one would hope the great creator, so to speak, doesn't act completely upon his word and fulfill them. There's an interesting prediction about that date, the 13th of October 2025, a prediction made in a book by one Thomas Horn, who also wrote this book. But in this book, from December 2019, he suggests the 13th of October 2025 is the beginning of the biblical tribulation period, a prophecy derived from the big book, 7 years of turmoil and divine judgment. And Horn, who passed away in 2023, bases this idea around the date, April 13th, 2029, as being the middle of that 7 years of turmoil and divine judgment. That date, April 13th, 2029, is associated with what is being called the near-Earth asteroid Apophis, which at the moment is not believed to be on a collision course with Earth. But Horn suggests that NASA and the space-watching establishment in general have miscalculated the near-Earth asteroid known as Apophis as near-Earth, and Horn suggests that really it is probably headed directly towards us.
You may have seen recently where NASA is calling an all clear on the impact possibility of Apophis for the year 2029. But what they're not telling you is that a number of celebrated scientists disagree. For example, one mathematician is warning that NASA's trajectory calculation of Apophis is off by as much as 600,000 miles, which Harry Lear implies could send Apophis crashing into Earth 8 years from now on April 13, 2029. More impressive than Lear, top 100 scientist Nathan Myhrvold, in a recent peer-reviewed paper titled An Empirical Examination of Wise Neo-Wise Asteroid Analysis and Results, refutes much of the data from NASA, and he actually charges them with deliberately misreporting threats by near-Earth objects and even of behaving, quote, extremely deceptively. And then there is famous planetary scientist and astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, who admits that on April 13, 2029, quote, Apophis will come so close to Earth that it'll dip below our orbiting communication satellites. It will be the largest, closest thing we have ever observed to come by Earth. The orbit we now have for it is uncertain. Pay attention to that.
Horn suggests Apophis could indeed be on its way to Earth and is in actuality the biblical wormwood, as foretold in Revelation.
Assuming for the moment that I'm right, and that the asteroid Apophis is biblical wormwood, and therefore 2029 represents a period around the middle of the Great Tribulation period, when the trumpet judgments began. Monday, October 13, 2025, that is April 13, 2029 minus 3.5 years. That would be the approximate start date for what dispensationalists call the 7 years of tribulation foreseen in the Bible in such places as Matthew 24, Revelation 7, Daniel 12, and so on.
Now, it is very strange that this author, a member of the Christian Broadcast Network that has bases all over the place, pointed to the 13th of October 2025 as early as at least 2019 as the beginning of this so-called tribulation period, and on that exact day, the very thing expected to happen at the beginning of that tribulation period was reported to have happened in the news on that day. The thing believed to begin this tribulation period is that the Big AC signs a covenant with Israel for 7 years, and on that exact day, DT signed a peace deal. involving Israel. A covenant, if you will. And of course we have seen DT depicted so many times as the Big AC, demonic, and with the old familiar numbers. Not only that, Horn's prediction of the date 13th of October 2025 as the beginning of the tribulation period heavily involves the asteroid Apophis, and at that time, as now, 3I Atlas is big in the news. A comet, which it is reported has several anomalies, not acting quite like a typical comet, or so they say. Some headlines even suggested that it could be technological in origin. Some people going so far as to say it could even be messianic.
When you have an external threat, people tend to unite. And that, in a way, is a messianic era. If you think about the arrival of the Messiah, maybe that will come from another star, in the sense that it will bring peace to earth among all humans.
This all seems just a little bit too convenient for me. Am I really supposed to think that this is all the work of the great creator? Somebody, somewhere wants us to think that we are in the end times.
3.5 years earlier, before the impact of Apophis, to the day is the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles. It not only falls into the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles, but literally on the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles in 2025. Why is that important? Because the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles is when the ancient Hebrews, get this, sacrificed 7 bulls in commemoration of God delivering them from all of the gods of the nations, but in particular, delivering them from the gods of Egypt, and in particular, delivering them from Apophis, the ancient Egyptian god of chaos. Literally, that day in antiquity is 3.5 years to the day from when Apophis is going to strike the earth, is when the Hebrews will be celebrating how God in antiquity delivered them from Apophis. So is God going to deliver his own people 3.5 years earlier?
And when they gave the Pope a white horse, just after the 13th, like the one mentioned in Revelation, I mean, really? And the fact that it was called Proton, meaning the first, as in the first horse of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the white horse, the horse for conquest or false peace. I mean, come on. Someone's having a good laugh at the moment. Is it a distraction, a psyop? Question is, I suppose, is Apophis really headed directly towards us? Or is it possible to fake an asteroid impact? Makes you wonder what's really going on up there. I'm going to end with this. It's about an ad on YouTube that kept popping up for me recently. Paramount Plus. It's the anthropomorphized goat next to a mountain. Now, I only managed to get this on my phone camera. Cannot find a copy of this anywhere online for a screen recording. But what got me about this is, not only is it an anthropomorphized goat, so half goat, half human, wearing human accessories and speaking, but on the clapperboard here are the numbers 20 and 1, the numbers associated with another half man, half goat on the cosmogram, the synchronical model, our old friend the Baphomet at the 0 degree line, the 20th of January, and the seat of the scapegoat, where DT currently sits. And if DT really is the Big AC, he better pray that the great creator who created him goes a little easier on him than we are told will happen. But don't worry, he seems to be making amends.
We gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.